here's the hard truth. In West Africa, Ebola is now an epidemic of the likes that we have not seen before. It's spiraling out of control. It is getting worse. It's spreading faster and exponentially. Today, thousands of people in West Africa are infected. That number could rapidly grow to tens of thousands. And if the outbreak is not stopped now, we could be looking at hundreds of thousands of people infected, with profound political and economic and security implications for all of us.
Americans are angry, confused, and perhaps more than a little concerned, told there is nothing more dangerous to our way of life than a growing band of terrorist killers. Yet then being told there is no place more important for our troops than on the ground in northern Africa to assist in fighting something they cannot see, cannot touch, and have no real weapons against. This as a thought of the opponent possibly being a weapon in and of itself that has some wondering if we are indeed on the verge of turning what was once science fiction into science fact. Welcome to MidPoint, an expert and specialist in internal medicine, noted author, and with experience in treating diseases that threaten a large part of the population, such as AIDS. Dr. Jorge Rodriguez joins us. Dr. Rodriguez, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Please, right at the top, tell the American people, in your professional and medical opinion, why do we need the American military on the ground to ensure some form of success against this virus?
Well, you know what? The decision to bring the military there obviously wasn't mine. I don't think it's a bad decision. Let me be honest. I would prefer trained medical professionals there, but they are few and far between that can do that. So God bless our military. They are trained, they are expert, and they are disciplined. So we have a force that can go there, construct hospitals that are necessary, take information, which is crucial in stopping Ebola, and other things as simple as people's addresses and where they are. So that, to me, is I think, a good reason why our military, a very disciplined force, is a good choice, actually, to go to this area.
Is it simply stated that the American military has, and I think you alluded to this a little bit as well, the discipline, the coordination, and that the governments in these parts of the countries right here and their military itself are at sometimes chaotic and simply, if we're going to put it in very obvious terms sometimes, don't seem to have much of a clue as to what they're doing when it comes down to fighting something of this level?
You hit the nail right on the head. And that, as difficult as it is to say, is the reason why Ebola, one of the main reasons that Ebola has spread so much in West Africa. There is no infrastructure. In the United States, hopefully it will never happen. I suspect that it will one day. Ebola will get here. We know how to trace contacts. We have people's addresses. I read an article that said that only 20 to 30% of the people that come into contact, that the government had an actual active address as to where they could be located so they could be examined and quarantined. So you're right. Much of what's happening is because there's very loose and very poor infrastructure in those countries.
Dr. Kent Brantley, the American doctor who actually caught the Ebola virus, was treated here back in Atlanta. He recently appeared, as a matter of fact, in front of Congress, in front of senators, and made a very, very harsh statement that still has a lot of people thinking twice about the entire protection of Ebola. I want you to hear the statement and our viewers as well.
Many, including one of the senators today, use the analogy of a fire burning out of control to describe this unprecedented Ebola outbreak. Indeed, it is a fire. It is a fire straight from the pit of hell. We cannot fool ourselves into thinking that the vast moat of the Atlantic Ocean will protect us from the flames of this fire.
Hyperbole or right on target, Doctor?
Right on target. I pride myself in being a very calm, person that can act in, emergency situations with a clear head. So seriously, I think very few things rattle me. Viruses like this do concern me. I wrote a blog many, many weeks ago that said it's not a question of if, it's only a matter of when it comes over here. It's so small, it doesn't even have to be someone that's ill, that brings it over. It's someone that is about to get ill, that goes on a plane and passes it on to someone else, and they then, go to another hub of a major airline and bring it over. So infectious diseases like this, with certainty, it will spread. Hey, there are 50 to 75 million people in the world, and we don't think about this, with HIV. That's huge. other viruses have killed hundreds of millions of people. That's why the time to contain it is now, when it is still manageable.
When we look at what happened here, and let's look at some of the drug news that has come out of this. The Ebola vaccine made by GlaxoSmithKline is the furthest along. It is phase 1 human trials. Now, GSK is looking at their options. Apparently, according to a story, the company wants to be sure there's a market for the vaccine. And back in March, they contacted the World Health Organization and asked them if they needed this. The WHO said, and this is a quote, "Thanks, we'll get back to you." So is the American military and other people around the world, other governments now, making up for the stunning amount of negligence that came from the people at the WHO who didn't get on this when they first heard about it and immediately start to do something?
You know what? Yes and no. We have a saying in medicine, you know, the retrospectoscope is always 2020. So looking back to March, there may not have seemed to have been an immediacy as there is now. People have always been afraid of Ebola. So creating a vaccine should have been a top priority. Unfortunately, you know, and the pharmaceutical company has to, you know, carry some of the burden here. They're motivated by what is going to make profit for them. I don't see how they're going to make a lot of profit selling vaccines to poor countries. So a World Health Organization like WHO, you know, and maybe different governments have to pony up. So to some degree, yes, there was negligence. There was, at worst, there was lack of foresight. Let's put it that way.
I'm going to tread very carefully on the next question, but it certainly is something that here in this day and age we think about. The weaponization of bacteria, the weaponization of diseases. We have heard these stories before, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, many times this is science fiction. But in your professional opinion, is Ebola something that if someone were to get a hold of it and just have enough to do the job, could they weaponize this disease?
There's no doubt that that's a possible scenario. I mean, there have been people that have filled syringes and gone to public places and injected people with blood contained with HIV. There definitely is a possibility that someone could have a vial of blood, of phlegm, you know, spread it in a public place. And I don't want to give anybody ideas because I'm sure they've already thought of it. But yes, you know, it is not as easy, for example, as anthrax or as something that you could put into a ventilator system and spread it around. But is it possible? Absolutely. Is it frightening? Definitely.
Let's look at the frightening part of this, and here's some statistics. This is a CNN ORC international poll, 1,014 adult Americans, September 5th through the 7th. This asks about the concern about getting Ebola. Only 27% of Americans are concerned. 73% are not worried. Does that scare you just a little bit?
No, you know what? It doesn't scare me right now. I think people should be concerned and not worried. Right now, I think people like myself, you know, government officials that are responsible, I mean, we're being paid to worry. You know, it's our responsibility right now to try to put systems in place. It's then our responsibility to educate the American public as to what they can do. I think right now there's no need to panic, but there is a need to be cautious and to be learned about what's going on.
About a minute or so that I have left here. Right now the disease is pseudo-contained, if you will, in one area of the planet. Is it possible, and do you think we could be reaching the point where we may have to quarantine an entire nation? Not only that, but how would you do it and the manpower in order to do that? And you think about a military getting involved, that makes people think that perhaps they're going to stop people from leaving the country.
I disagree with you. I don't think it's pseudo-contained. I don't think it's contained at all. That may have to happen. Actually, Liberia did close their borders for a period of time. And what you're alluding to, it created rioting. It created people trying to sneak around. It created a black market for trafficking people. So you are bringing up a doomsday scenario, but it might be possible to just have to quarantine a country. That's how Ebola was treated. You would quarantine a village. Unfortunately, a village has maybe 40 people. A country has 40 million. So I only leave it to your imagination as to what could possibly happen with that.
And I appreciate your comments on pseudo-contained. I wasn't looking to minimize it in any way, shape, or form. But you are exactly right. There are those people who believe that it is only in one area of the planet. It certainly is not, and it certainly can spread very quickly. And let's hope that the next time we talk, we're not talking doomsday scenarios. Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, thank you so much for your comments. I'll look forward to the next time we speak.
My pleasure.
Later on this hour, a history lesson that proves beyond the shadow of any doubt the National Football League has zero clue or desire to be truly socially relevant. And after the break the bank, spend the cash. Here come the midterms. And if you look at the numbers and listen, there's one party that sure seems desperate, spending $14 million. That and a whole lot more coming up right here on MidPoint.